Okay, so
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Non-Power Hour, the podcast that no one wants but us. It's your host, G Lash Cash, and Max Stacks, coming at you today. First time in like a year. I don't know what it is. We should have done
I think
that
at
numbers as
least a
well.
year and a half since before the pandemic. So
I think we did one during the middle of the pandemic. I'm pretty sure we did one flipping in Chicago,
right,
but like one, it was one.
yeah, yeah.
So
When we didn't know
hopefully.
what was going on.
Yeah. So hopefully to our loyal fan out there, I will make this more regular, more frequent. But we're excited to be back. If anything, talking just sports, talking mid majors, talking non-Group of Fives, and sorry, the Group of Five teams, and just yeah, excitement around every sport, every small team we can draw.
I'm just happy to be back. I'm just happy to be doing this again, talking about a real college.
Yeah.
Not that last college football season wasn't real. It was exciting. There were a lot of breakout teams like Coastal
Yeah.
Carolina, which I know Max and I are both eager to kind of talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
But it kind of felt weird because like some teams played a full schedule, only conference games. Some teams scheduled games like in 2 days. Other teams
Yeah.
played like 4 games the entire season. Um,
Yeah. South Carolina went on a 6-game losing streak,
they
so I lost
did.
all interest by like game three of that.
And by the way, like none of the games were close. It was really bad.
No, it was a tough season.
UCLA lost a horrible. They just in horrible fashion the last 2 games this season to USC and Stanford. So despite showing improvements,
Yeah.
still breaking our hearts as usual. And of course, the group of 5 teams got left out of the playoff as they always do,
Yeah.
despite being
Yeah,
undefeated.
the year that could have been. It was there for us. It was Cincinnati, what, 10-0,
Yeah,
some pretty key wins against some solid opponents, right, in the American Conference. Coastal Carolina came out of nowhere, blew everyone out of the water, beat a BYU team that was ranked.
I know they did
Yeah,
not
what?
get rewarded for that. They went out,
Yeah.
they scheduled with them like within like that should be rewarded when you like. I mean, people like schedule 5 years in advance. When you seek out an undefeated, or I don't know if BYU was undefeated, but they were both ranked, and just to seek out. I think they were both undefeated, and seek out that
Yeah,
opponent
I
like
think
in a
so.
couple of days
In
and
the
just play
APUS.
that game, like put the season on the line basically, and then win, and then not even get boosted by that. Like that's why the system needs to change. The playoff needs to expand. I know you're
Yeah.
super excited about that, Max.
And yeah, because boys, it changed. We've got some real alignment that's happened in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. So COVID happened. It's a full season, so I think we'll see a lot more normalcy with all these games. We've got some games happening this week. But I mean, everything's up in the air too. We've got Oklahoma and Texas moving over to the SEC. We've got some movement as well, as you pointed out, in the Southland Conference and the WAC.
Yeah, the Southland kind of got
So
gutted, and then half the teams joined the WAC, which is reinstating football, of course. If you're
yeah,
a big fan of low major, mid major football, non-power schools. You remember the whack of the old with
yep,
Boise State and Nevada, Hawaii, I think Fresno State definitely,
yeah,
Utah
UNLV.
State. There were some of those were in the Mountain West too, but then they all moved over to the Mountain West, and the WAC kind of disappeared into a bunch of non-football schools. But now they added a bunch of teams from the Southland back, like Sam Houston State, which is the defending FCS champion in the spring season.
Hmm.
Abilene Christian, whose basketball team made some noise in the off season. So
So
more on them in
Lumberjacks.
basketball season. What was that?
Yeah. So Lumberjacks, is that what Abilene Christian is?
No, I think they're just the Wild.
That's
You're thinking Stephen
SFA.
F. Austin, and I think they're
Yeah.
also in the WAC too. They're
Oh,
a great
dude.
basketball team. So that'll be really interesting come basketball season. But in football season, welcome back, WAC. They're going to be in the FCS, of course. They used to be an FBS program, but I mean, yeah, the ripple effects from Texas, Oklahoma, you know, it could, as you were mentioning, we were talking off the air about like scheduling. It might be harder for like group of 5 teams to wiggle into a Power 5 schedule.
Yeah, yeah. How I look at it is, we have this super SEC team happening within 5 years. I mean, they might play some out of conference stuff, but the SEC already plays a bunch of cupcakes. Like when you think about these big group of 5 versus Power 5 games, it's almost always not the SEC, right? It's almost always the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the ACC. And I think we're going to lose with now this alliance happening between between the ACC, Big Ten, and Big 12. Is going to be a lot more conference scheduling between them, which will mean, good football games between those conferences, but will leave less chances for our boys, these group of 5 teams, to make some noise, because no longer will Appalachian State play Michigan, right? Because they've only got one other game maybe beyond that alliance they'll play, and
Right.
that would just be that might be an FCS kind of team, just to
Right.
have a warm up.
Right.
So it's gonna be tough. I don't think our boys are gonna have the chance to really get put on the map.
Yeah, I like you said, kind of those like Cincinnati, like a team like them is gonna have a real hard time kind of like getting into a Power 5. Like a Boise State, like they'll never, like nobody wants to play Boise State, which sucks. They get punished for that, Boise State, because they play an easier schedule, but they love to go play at a Power 5 team, or bring teams to the blue field, maybe like a 2-1 type situation, 2 on the road and 1 in Boise, but nobody wants to play there because they have everything to lose and nothing really to gain. So it's kind of a screwed up system in that way. And kind of along the lines of realignment, of course, the Big 12 got gutted down to 8 teams. There's some speculation that maybe those 8 teams would quickly get scooped up by the other conferences. But I don't think that's going to happen. The Pac-12 announced today that they were not going to expand in at least the next like 5 or 6 years, 10 years, something like that. So they're going to stay at 12 teams, which means that unless the other 2 conferences want to split, like get mass like 18 teams, like the ACC already has 15 if you count Notre Dame, I think. So they'd go to like 19 if they took half the team. So I think that the Big 12 might they might look to add some teams, maybe like a Houston. Who else do you think? SMU, maybe Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it's going to be a great choice for them. I mean, they're the top group 5 team at the moment. Tulsa too, right? Staying in the Oklahoma market, they've been solid recently. I love Southern Miss. I think they've got some decent history as well. Those are all geographically pretty relevant states and campuses, and ones that maybe not all of them have that profile. Houston, obviously, great school. Basketball, football, especially football. Has been up there. Cincinnati's been great on both sides of the sports coin, and basketball and football.
And I think it'd be really easy, like their presence in Texas. They just lost a big presence in Texas, but if they add Houston and SMU, now they have a foothold in 2 major metropolises in Dallas and Houston. So, I mean, that'll be a big thing. And then you have the SMU-TCU rivalry. I'm pretty sure they used to be in the same conference way back, maybe like the Southwest Conference, the Big 8 or whatever it was. And they definitely, that rivalry can be renewed, like a crosstown rivalry. I think that'd be, kind of a thing to see. And, as you said, I think they've both, within the last few years, had made good runs in both basketball and football, especially Houston basketball getting to the Final Four this year. And, a couple of years ago, they got all the way to the Fiesta Bowl or something like that. So, or I don't know, something like, they had a really good season. I remember a couple of years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago now. So I think those are 2 easy choices. And then do they want to get 2 more, or they want to stay there? Like you mentioned Tulsa, you mentioned Southern Miss, Louisiana Tech, or something like, or Tulane, maybe you get in the New Orleans market. Although those are obviously a little bit of a step down. So it'll be interesting. But I think that likely we won't hear too much until maybe the off season. But
and then do you think the chance? Do you think do you think even the Big 12 will merge with like the American as a whole and create this like new super relatively group of five team, or sorry, this Power Five conference? Do you think the group of five will have to like band together too? So I just think
I
their
think
voice
if
is gonna be so drowned out now.
I
They've
think if
got
they
a
do
Clemson,
that,
so
they risk dilute, like they won't be considered a power five. Like if you add that many,
yeah.
like there's some like Cincinnati. I think like you could argue like they might be the top brand. Like they used to be in the Big East. Like they're in a big city. Like they kind of get a little bit of preferential treatment in basketball. They've been decent in football. They have teams like that. They also have teams like I don't know, East Carolina. East Carolina's been okay.
Memphis has Memphis been good? They've been okay recently.
Memphis, like they've all kind of like there's Temple,
Southern
there's
Florida,
Tulane, who's
yeah,
kind of been Navy. Um,
yeah. But
there's
that's what I'm
there's
saying. Like, there's never like an atrocious team.
right. I just don't think that these are quite up to the level of like they're definitely pesky group of five teams that can beat like power five teams on any day. I just don't think
Yeah,
that when you think of like big brands, like I think you're just diluting it a little bit and you'll be kind of thought
yeah,
as like maybe a 4.5 conference, like especially like the Big Ten, like the Pac-12, like you think like entire states represented by like, Ohio State, Michigan, like, you're kind of, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of diving a little bit, you got
yeah.
like South Florida and Wichita State, like, fine uh, teams, but maybe not as big brands and not as big
No, no,
markets.
I'm definitely not big.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that worth the alternative of having 8 teams or 6 teams or whatever they're at? 8 teams.
I think
Um,
I don't know if they should go for a full thing, but I think right in Texas they can get like two.
yeah.
Maybe they can like add two more. I don't know.
No,
Yeah, we can kind of pose this question and to maybe our fan and see what comes back. But
yeah.
let's kind of break down like what we think is going to happen this season. Obviously, we're going to play a full slate. A lot of conferences coming forward and saying, if you forfeit a game, it's done. You lose it. You can't like make it up. So yeah, I mean, it's going to feel a little bit more like a real football season. And there's some excitement coming out of the Sun Belt, Max. If you want to
What's
preview
that?
the
The Sun
Fun
Belt?
Belt.
The new Power Five conference
That's
with the
right.
Big 12 dissolving. They got 2 people in the top 25 and the top 23, I'll add,
Ooh,
in Louisiana and Coastal Carolina coming in 23 and 22 respectively. Both teams too, from what I understand, returning at least with their offensive firepower. So you think about Levi from Louisiana, McCall, Maribel, some of those from Coastal. Yeah, these are 2 teams that I think Louisiana's been there for a while. I don't think that was entirely out of nowhere. Certainly not going undefeated nearly or 10-1. But 2 teams that kind of came out of nowhere and showed the world that they're there to play. To Coastal already in the BYU game. The lack of respect they got from that, but I mean they got some respect now.
I think Louisiana got completely disrespected last year. They lost one game to a close game to Coastal, and they beat Iowa State, who ended up finishing like 6th or 7th ranked in the entire country.
The number 7 now,
yeah, and number 17 in the whole country. They got like ranked like 18, like that, and then their only loss was to an undefeated team. If Coastal Carolina had sealed the deal against Liberty, that would have been spectacular. That would have been fantastic, really. Storybook season. They both ended up with a 1 loss. I mean, it's just a fantastic resume on both sides. They both beat fantastic ranked teams. BYU, of course, Zach Wilson, number 2 pick in the draft, and then Iowa State, as I just mentioned. So the lack of respect, and especially in case of Coastal Carolina, they're like like being led by a freshman to that kind of season, and Grayson McCall,
Yeah.
just fantastic stuff. And my friend Taylor Dively down there, former South Carolina student, transferred to Coastal Carolina, getting the Mullets versus Mormon shirt. He's gonna have the fan base rocking and rolling, the unofficial leader. But yeah, so those are
Nice.
obviously two fantastic teams to watch. I'm going to pivot quickly to the FCS and mention kind of, last year North Dakota State kind of came up short. They lost Trey. It's a little bit of an asterisk. They lost Trey Lance to the league. Of course, he didn't play their spring season, but their kind of reign of terror ended. They didn't go in with this. They didn't weren't a seeded team in the 16-team playoff, and then they did lose a close one to the eventual champion Sam Houston State. So I don't know. I kind of feel like it might be South Dakota State's time. They've kind of been overshadowed. They still haven't won an FCS championship. They're going to be kind of the favorites coming out of the Missouri Valley Football Conference. So look at them to kind of break through this year. This past year, they didn't quite. They didn't have to face North Dakota State, but ended up falling to Sam Houston State. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on the FCS side. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna definitely preview some more teams before our first full week next week, but there's some teams to look out for.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna quickly kind of mention that we have live college football this weekend, even though it's not the full slate. There's nothing better than
Yeah,
week
week
zero. So
zero.
I just have the games pulled up here, and Max, if you want to comment on any of them. First
Yeah.
game is UConn at Fresno State. Fresno State currently 27 and a hook favorites over UConn. Of course,
Mhm.
UConn conference-less now, having joined the Big East, which does not sponsor football. So, any chance you see, how do you feel about the spread? Any chance you see UConn coming through there?
Yeah. I love Fresno State. I don't know why. Again, it's one of those teams that I just have some weird fascination for. The Valley, the Cars. I think they're good. I love the team. I always pull for them. I'm always baffled to see how little respect and how little support there is for UConn. I mean, they weren't that bad a couple of years ago, it seems like. So I mean, 28 points, that's a lot for, first game this season. I know UConn's not played for a couple of years, so a couple of years, year and a half now. They canceled their season in 2020. So I don't know. I feel like it could go either way. I feel like it's got either be really close and UConn just like pulled out some miracle because, I mean, will they have to lose? Or, they get blown out again because they've not played football for a year and a half. Fresno State is a good team offensively, especially. I have
Yeah,
no idea who's returning. Any team.
yeah,
But
no,
I'm gonna say it's gonna be closer than people think. I think UConn's gonna be not blown out of the water.
I think that what's going to happen is Utah's going to hit a couple trick plays in the beginning of the game. They want to get some excitement going for their They have nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're going to come out, and I think then Fresno State's going to eventually impose its will and then creep up on that. It's going to be a bad beat. They're going to beat them by 28 points, right at the end of the game. Even though UConn will play respectable for most of the time. So interesting there. The next game at 3:30, not the primetime game, which I'm a little bit irked about. The FCS game got the primetime game, which we'll kind of come to in a second. Hawaii, UCLA. UCLA 17.5 point favorites. Player to watch on Hawaii, Chevin Cordero. I believe he's still the quarterback, and he can put up some points. They put up some points last year. UCLA does not like to play defense. Neither does Hawaii. So it's going to be it's going to be a shootout. Dorian Thompson Robinson for UCLA is coming back for his ninth year. They've been hyping him up for like 38 years now. I think he's finally got a little bit figured out. So, yeah, I don't know. I think UCLA will win. It'll be an exciting game. Definitely tune into that. And
I saw something that
yeah, go for
some
it.
analysts were saying that game was going to hit the under because
Really?
UCLA and Hawaii, yeah, they were not good defensive teams, but improved over the course of the season. I didn't quite buy that.
68 and a half. It's 68 and a half.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
lot.
and they called the under. It is. What is that, 35 points, 5 touchdowns each? I
40,
mean,
like 41-24 would not
yeah,
cover, or even 44-24, which would, or 41-27, like, which would be considered a shootout, would not cover.
yeah.
So, that's asking a lot. You know, we just came out of a pandemic season, so maybe we'll kind of start out rusty and maybe not catch up to the number. So,
It's kind of the thought too, I think. It's just like week 0, not even week 1,
yeah.
first live game.
And with all the
We'll see.
COVID
But just,
restrictions, yeah, I mean, definitely like coming out of still having to do COVID restrictions during practice um, and stuff like that. And, Hawaii, obviously has, every time they travel to the mainland, even if it's LA, it's like a cross country flight. So
yeah.
it'll be like noon body time for them or whatever. So I don't know, maybe like they're all kind of sluggish and including their offense and they don't get going. So um,
Yeah.
I'm going to take the
We'll
over
see.
because I love points, but that's just me.
Yeah, no. I love defense. I love pulling for a good defensive game, so I try and lean under where I can.
True. I don't know why I said that. I love. Yeah, I don't dislike a strong defensive battle either. Sometimes it's like 6-3 or something. And I'm like, yo, this is
Yeah.
interesting. Like it wasn't the
Every
Super Bowl.
possession matters. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get the big break.
But I think like once you kind of get like into the like 20-30 range, might as well go to like 50. Like
That's
I either
fair.
like a low ass scoring game or like a high scoring game, nothing in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, next couple games, nightcaps on the East Coast, 9:30 and 10 o'clock. We got UTEP, New Mexico State, the Battle of I-10, and Southern
Yeah.
Utah from the FCS at San Jose State, who went undefeated in the regular season last year, if you don't remember. So they have
Yeah.
Nick Starkel, who's is 6-year senior, formerly of Texas A&M and Arkansas.
I love Mississippi State.
Was Mississippi State? I thought it was Arkansas.
Okay.
Anyway,
Doesn't
yeah,
matter.
maybe 3. No way.
I'm pretty sure it's definitely State.
Okay, you can check
So,
me on that.
I
But
will.
either case, New Mexico State, another conferenceless team. They are getting the home game. Of course, last year they didn't even get to play games in their home state. They were kind of banned from doing that. Um,
Mhm.
So UTEP's a 10-point favorite. Southern Utah, a 24-point dog at San Jose State. Yeah, I don't see any big upsets here personally. I think San Jose State kind of came out of nowhere. They're probably maybe looking to
Yeah.
make a statement that last year wasn't a fluke. But anyone is liable to come out rusty. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think things will be close early on, but I think as people get loose,
Definitely. And then
yeah, well,
kind of a little bit of interesting fun facts before we wrap up for the week. We have Eastern Illinois and Indiana State playing at 6 o'clock. And then we have Alcorn State, NC Central, primetime ESPN at 7 o'clock. And what's really interesting is I just looked this up. This is like my one piece of research that we did before coming on, was that so in the case of Alcorn State and NC Central, particularly NC Central, and also in the case of Indiana State, they did not play a single game in the 2020 season. They both opted out. They haven't played a game since November 23rd, 2019, which means they've had a 644-day off season, which is 1 year and like about 9 months. And then a little more than 9 months actually. And then in the case of Eastern Illinois, they just played a game on April 3rd of this year, 2021, in the spring season. And they've only their off season is, I think it's like 147 days. So like 500 days less of off season. So you could maybe argue, I don't have the entire record of all off seasons ever, but you have the longest off season in Indiana State going against the shortest offseason in the history of football in Eastern Illinois. So buckle up. It's going to be interesting, to say the least, in those two matchups as well. And yeah, so of course, we got real games starting next Wednesday for week 1, I guess. UAB Jacksonville State gets a standalone game. So that'll be interesting. Jacksonville State, high-ranked team in the FCS.
Yeah.
UAB churns out defensive backs that play on the Rams. So Darius Williams.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I like pull for UAB now because their program got canceled.
Yeah, dude.
And they rebuilt it in like 2 years. And then
a conference winning team too. Like they came right back where they left off, winning the CUSA.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. They won the conference, which is freaking incredible, by the way. What a story that is.
Yeah.
And Darius Williams, who's on the Rams, is an absolute beast. Like completely underrated because he plays opposite Jalen Ramsey, but people are gonna know his name. He's so good. One of my favorite players in the league. And then Jacksonville State, of course, the Gamecocks. They get the home. Actually, I think it's a neutral site game and high-ranked team out of the FCS. And then Thursday we get going with a bunch of games. Friday, Saturday, we'll be back to preview a lot of those. So, anyway, any last words any last thoughts before we dive headfirst into the college football season?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm back in my habit of like watching all the highlights from the season before. So I'm ready for it. I came so close to buying tickets to the Illinois-Nebraska game this weekend to be the first game of the season. It's right in my backyard. It's like 2 hours south. But I think I'm going to a bar for too late on Friday to make it worthwhile. And yeah, just, again, pulling for the little guys. There's some great opportunities out there, like we mentioned. Cincinnati, Coastal, Louisiana, even like the Tulsas, the Ball States, the Buffaloes. They got some respect. They had a great season last year. One team I'm really excited for this season, not to like go to the playoffs or anything, but I think to win their conference kind of out of nowhere. UTSA, they've had like 4 or 5 seasons in a row of a top 75 recruiting class. They were second in the division in their division of the conference last year. So I'll be pulling for some road runners this season as a little dark horse USA champion. But just put that name in your hat.
The Utsa pick. Man, that is fantastic work from Max. Yeah, they I think they play in the Alamo Dome, so they play on that turf and they put up a lot of points. So we kind of look out for their first game next week. And another team, BYU, of course, they're going to be back this year. They're going to be tough. Max, you mentioned Ball State, another great kind of sleeper team. Boise State's going to be tough again. They're always tough. There's some real. What's up?
Nevada's got Carson Strong.
Yeah, Carson Strong's back.
On talent. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think UCF, they've been okay. They've got what quarterback are they on? They're Dylan Gabriel, I think.
Milton's gone to FSU. So I'm excited about FSU. I love Milton. I hated seeing his career.
That was so hard.
Paused from the ACL. But that man's a champion. So looking forward to seeing him play again, hopefully.
And they were gunning for another perfect season that year as well. Before, and they almost had it with their backup quarterback. They against LSU, they almost beat LSU with their backup quarterback. So they're going to be strong again. I think Heupel's still sitting on a good team. So yeah, it's going to be a fantastic year. We're gonna check in with you every week, do a little pulse check of some of the games, make some picks, talk about some bigger topics like conference realignment and Max's facial hair and my head hair.
Your hair.
Yeah.
Any new
But
tattoos you get?
oh yeah, Max got a new tattoo.
A
Uh,
tattoo.
look at that. Look at that. It's a sideways 8.
Yeah, it is. Because I want the Power 8 conferences. No more Power 5. You need 8 massive, wonderful conferences.
All right.
And
So
18 playoffs.
if you're really about it, what are the 2 conferences you leave behind for the Power 8?
I mean, the MAC.
Ooh,
I love Action. I
ooh,
love Northern Illinois. I love Buffalo. And then Conference USA.
yeah.
Gotta keep Fun Belt. Gotta keep the Midwest.
Mountain West
Gotta keep Mountain West.
and the
Gotta keep
AAC.
yeah, American.
I think most people would be with you there. Although, is it the Sun or is it Conference USA that like somehow like does incredible every bowl season?
I think you're right. Yeah, they're like always 10-2 or something.
Yeah. I think they
I
had
think that
another
was
good
really
one.
undervalued.
Yeah, I think they had another good one last year. So don't
We'll
sleep.
just merge Conference USA into the American, make that one conference.
Right, like
Merge.
Conference American USA, like they're both kind of the same
Yeah,
thing. Like USA American, same thing.
exactly. Yeah. And I just figured that's all I can get. Y'all can figure out the rest of it. I've got like 90% of the puzzle figured out. So ESPN, the presidents and ADs can figure out the last 5%. I got
Right,
all mostly there.
and then Midwest or Mountain West and Mid American, you can have like the Mid Mountain West American Conference.
Yeah, that happens.
Mid Mountain
No
American West.
Yeah. All right, we'll workshop it. We'll come back with our theories or reports or papers or PowerPoints next week.
Yeah. Well, until next week, you guys, we're signing off. Thank you for listening to the podcast that nobody wants but us. And go Gamecocks.
Go Gamecocks.
Go Cox.